Borak. She's award-winning national security, border security investigator, reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. By the way, Kimberly is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. You know, and I got to tell her at the end of that, she's responsible for foreign policy. I mean, that's what it almost sounds like. And we got some trouble today, but she's also a TV correspondent at CW News 6 San Diego, as well as the One America News Network. Want to make sure you know how to spell that last name because it's D-V-O-R-A-K. And when she comes on every Monday like this, perfect timing because it seems like something always happens over the weekend. She's also streaming live, all right, at periscope.com and also Facebook, and it's D-V-O-R-A-K. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Well, I'm doing all right, but I feel like my studio's been attacked by drones today.
Quite possible.
You rely on you rely on an atomic clock, and then it goes out, and then you don't have the batteries in your studio, and then, I mean, everything's just going upside down. But it could be worse. I could be in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah, you could have been working the overnight shift there at one of the Ramco complexes that were hit over the weekend. So let's just say you probably had a better weekend than they did.
Well, I'll tell you, yes, I did, absolutely. Trump now suggesting that the investigations have reason to believe that they knew who launched the crippling attacks. Let me see if I can find the other one here. Jack Ian.
Yep.
Strategic analyst reported today on Fox that Iran is lashing out in an attempt to force the U.S. to reduce crippling economic sanctions. And he says, I don't believe the Iranians are in any position to talk right now. And what is it, like 5.7 million barrels of daily oil are now not going out, but guess what? We elected a president who decided to make America the number one nation in oil and gas. Boy, that's pretty good timing, huh, Kimberly?
Very much so. Actually, the president was really good about this over the weekend. Oil prices did spike to about $72 per barrel. They have been running right around the $60 per barrel for the last year and a half or so, because the president, as you just mentioned, said that he, is going to make sure that he makes this country a net exporter. So that's kept the price of oil down. Now, once everything is starting to unfold here and people start learning a little more about the attacks and seeing that the U.S. is going to step up and fill the void if we need to, that settled the market way down. And now you're looking at the oil is resting somewhere around $65, $66 a barrel. So it will have a short-term, a little bit of a spike here, but it looks like if the president holds true to what he stated, saying that he would release some of our strategic reserves, then the world, global, buyers of energy, China, Russia, everyone else, they won't have much. They won't have much in interruption whatsoever from the oil that's coming in from the Middle East. I think if you look at this from the perspective of the Middle East, if we can kind of all put together the oil that all the country needs, and I'm talking about the U.S. and its allies, then the Saudi Arabians could actually get a double whammy here. They could be like even less influential in the OPEC oil markets, and they could actually, it could actually drive the prices of oil down, because if they don't need the Middle East, if we don't need the Middle East, that means there's more of a opportunity for the U.S. to start getting ourselves out of the region, because what strategic implications does the U.S. and national security play in the Middle East? And it's becoming less and less apparent that we really need them for much of anything.
Let me ask you this, because, see, I was thinking along the same lines when I woke up. And by the way, when I wake up and I'm thinking, that's unusual in itself. But, I was thinking about, well, I can automatically see the wannabe presidents on the left, all right, however how many there are now, 50, 60, saying, we don't need to do anything to Iran. But don't we still have some air bases in Saudi Arabia? Is there a big connection there?
Oh, we definitely have bases. I mean, the big military base is sitting in Qatar. So, there's, and they're probably the worst. Actually, I think they are the worst terrorist sponsors of terrorism around the world. Everybody puts that distinction on Iran, and while Iran does sponsor terrorism, the countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar all support terrorism to a greater degree. So, not that we should be propping up Iran by any stretch on any of this stuff. They do have their faults, but that's really, with the mullahs and the clerics and whatnot, because it's not necessarily a democratic country. So when you look at the totality of it all, Iran always seems to get the short end of the stick, I guess, when it comes to terrorism, because the U.S. does a lot of business with these other countries, and they're tier 1 and tier 2 human rights violators. They're obviously brutal dictatorial regimes. These countries have no problem, going to court one day with somebody and the next day they're dead. They have very, very high rates of executions. And women have pretty much zero rights in most of those countries. So I'm kind of offended by that, but it's probably why I don't plan on visiting that region anytime soon. But
they probably don't have a lot of great golf courses there either.
Little sandy. It's not good to be in the sand when you're on the golf course. You know that. Yeah. But getting back to the seriousness of this, there's been no reporting yet as to what kind of devices were used in this particular attack in Saudi Arabia. There are people saying, well, it could be cruise missiles, it could be ballistic missile, it could be that was just launched from a remote or a full-fledged drone. So, and if you noticed all of the coverage, they're saying maybe, could, and they're offering that plausible deniability, because down the line when the experts come in and they say what exactly happened here, because apparently U.S. government has said they have recovered some of the devices that failed to hit their targets. Indication that I'm getting from my military people are saying that these were very primitive devices that were used, and it was that the location where these missiles, or whatever we can't even call them missiles yet because we don't know exactly. So wherever these,
I'll tell you real quick. One report today said that it was drones and cruise missiles.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, cruise missiles. Now, they certainly know about that and where they were launched.
Yeah. Well, and that's like guided with GPS precision. You're talking about a technology that, those types of things at least are, they are high precision weapons. They're not going to just fall down in the middle of the desert somewhere, go, man, oops, I forgot where I was supposed to go, and I'm just going to drop here. So those kind of indicators are showing that these were not high-tech munitions that were used. And in some cases, a couple of people I've talked to said that, there are two things Saudi Arabia kind of showed their weakness in here. And Saudi Arabia has the benefit of a lot of U.S. high-tech military equipment. They failed to detect these munitions coming into their country. So now the question is, why did they fail to detect these coming into their country? And the second thing is, the munitions, like I said, slowly it's coming in that these things were small enough that these munitions could be taken out by a rifle. So that just shows how incompetent the Saudi Arabia military is, even though we support them.
My big question on that, okay, small enough, but look at all the damage they did.
Yeah.
It's almost like they have tiny weapons, but they have a great brain when it comes to hitting just the right spot at these refineries, because you just can't, hit one area and it's going to blow up the whole thing, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to a story that we talked about and covered here on your show. This goes back to what happened in Syria, for example, and the chemical gas attacks that allegedly happened, that in the end turned out to be a false flag, and it was staged. So, and we can look back to what happened to the tankers a couple months ago that were struck, and just, it was a miracle that on that tanker there was no oil, or it was just like a tiny fraction amount. It caused a big explosion and really looked good on the camera, but they really didn't lose any oil. There has been no estimation yet as to how much oil was actually turned off, and that's completely lost because it literally goes up in flames. So we have no reports on that. So this, I mean, we don't know. You have to ask the question, and I'm going to ask the listeners here. Ask the question: who stands to gain? Who's going to gain out of this? Do you think Iran is doing this because they want to go to war with America? Because that war would last like 2 weeks and then it'd be done. So would Iran actually want to do this when the U.S. president has overtly stated that he is considering talking to the Iranian government about the sanctions that are crippling their economy? This is something that the question you need to ask. Or are you going to, or is this a bigger picture story where, we've got people who really don't want America to with Iran because it doesn't suit their interests? So there are a lot of different scenarios, and we're doing an awful lot of Monday morning quarterbacking here. But, exactly. But if we wait for all of the evidence to come in, I say with pretty strong confidence that we're going to see that this was most likely a strike that the Houthis did actually luckily got off the ground, so to speak, I guess. They've promised that they're going to do this. They have been successful at hitting Saudi Arabia in the past. So I just think that when you look at this in the totality of it, this is going to be toned way, way down as to what really happened here. And when you hear the war hawks out there pounding their chest saying, we need to go to war, we need to level Iran and all of this, you have to just stop and look. We need to stop and look at the evidence before we make any decisions. And that's what we're, what hopefully the president's doing. He said that he's going to wait for all the evidence to come in. So
I'll tell you, talking about, the warmongers, whatever, they look at these plus signs, they call them, all right? The Houthis, the Yemen Houthi rebels, they are trained by Iran. Then Iran interfering with all those tankers, and the president saying, look, the Strait of Hormuz, that's a national waterway, and you guys are messing around with it.
Yeah.
And boy, and I'm telling you, you almost wonder because last week, the week before, Kimberly had these excellent reports about, the new warfare and the drones and the robots and all this. Gosh, you don't think they're listening to us over there, do you?
No, not at all. No. No, I mean, when you look at, again, when you look at, what these different factions, that are inside the Yemen war, you've got a lot of different proxy wars going on in that country. And, you'll hear people saying, well, the Houthis could not have pulled off this attack. They have no way to get these weapons. They don't know how to operate them and whatnot. And to that I say, well, I think that's exactly kind of what we said, or not we, but the Obama administration said about ISIS when they first went into Iraq. Oh, they're just a bunch of riffraff terrorists. And what did they do? One of the first things they did was secure all the military bases and steal all the equipment. So there's a lot of stuff out there, presumably, that's on this black market. So it's not, something that the Houthis couldn't have gotten their hands on. We just don't know who actually gave it to them, I think, at this point, or sold it to them.
Well, remember Obama said ISIS, they're on, Al-Qaeda's on the run.
JV
now,
team.
Maybe the Houthis are on the run and, making their stops to pick up all this stuff.
Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick here, a couple of minutes before the break. Do you think the words were too strong from Trump when he said locked and loaded, or is that what you would expect from the commander, the general?
Yeah. You know what? The actual, when you look at the actual quote, I encourage people to go online and go look up Trump's tweet. His tweet was like a 3-sentence tweet. The media pulled out the locked and loaded. and they left out the fact that the president said they're going to determine who's behind these attacks, and then they would face the wrath of the United States if it's certain countries. But
here, let me ask you this real quick. The quote I have from Donald J. Trump, okay? Saudi Arabia oil supply was attacked. There's reason to believe we know the culprit. We are locked and loaded, depending on verification.
Yeah.
We're waiting to hear from the kingdom. Now, that is the actual quote, right? Or did I just
yeah, that's one of them. But he's also put out there a couple other of tweets as well on this. And it's just, again, this is a point where, diplomats and national security team and, what's going on with Bolton being, dismissed from the White House. He's no longer the president's advisor. Hopefully there's going to be a lot more resolve and a lot more, just discussion about what to do about the situation, how it came to be, and ensure that the United States makes the right decision here instead of just jumping head, foot, and body into the Mediterranean and saying, look, we're all in to get rid of Iran. It's very, again, you really have to, look at who stands to benefit on something like this.
Absolutely.
And
you got to do your Common Core math or just regular math.
Yeah.
Kimberly, we need to take a break, and then we're going to be back. Medicine together.
Everybody's talking.
Chuck Wilder, CRN. My guest, Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, TV correspondent. I'll tell you, and don't forget the website, thekvreport.com, and also this report will be on YouTube later. So what do you think?
Okay. Well, this is how.
We don't have.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'd like to wrap up the story this way, or this article. I'd like to read what Iran had to say about this, and then I'd also like to read what the Houthis had to say. This comes via Twitter. The foreign minister of Iran said the U.S. and its clients are still stuck in Yemen because of the illusion that weapon superiority will lead to a military victory. Blaming Iran won't end that disaster. Accepting our April 15th proposal to end the war and begin talks may. And to that, the Houthis stated, we assure Saudi regime that our long arm can reach any place we choose and the time of our choosing. So you look at these two statements and you're looking that Iran has actually kind of reached out and said, you're blaming us, you shouldn't be blaming us. And if you really want peace, especially in Yemen right now, you need to come back to the table and start, talking in a diplomatic matter, which they're correct on. And the U.S., I'm hopeful that the incoming national security advisor will advise the president to just that, to start communicating with these countries. One last note that I want to leave here is that we got some photos from the BBC earlier today, and those photos appeared to show Western damage. Western of where the munitions hit was on the west side of the buildings, which would be indicative of something coming from Yemen. If it was on the other side or the north, then we would have said this came from Iran or Iraq. And so far, the Brits, the Russians, and the Chinese have all declined to say or blame in who's responsible behind this, because they're waiting for the evidence to come in before they go out and blame Iran or the Houthis or whomever it may have been. So these are interesting points for us to kind of keep looking at, and that's going to make this next NSA director, it's going to make him, he's going to be hit with a lot of stuff that he's got to advise the president on. So I'm hopeful he'll be making the right choice on that, and we'll know who that is in the next week or two.
And Bolton's gone, and
Yep.
a lot of people were concerned about him.
Yeah.
Hey, Iran, how they get their Ayatollah gets up, well, we shot down one of their unmanned drones and all this. They love to push it. But we also have a president over here that loves to push it too.
Push back, yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're just slapping each other on the internet.
That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
That's fine.
I got to tell you, Kimberly, you're on top of it all. And it's good that we have you back on your regular schedule here, because it seems like the weekend they always wait around to, Friday's the dropping point for bad news from Congress.
Yeah.
And apparently the foreign countries say, well, let's do it over the weekend and see what Kimberly has to say on Monday.
You're funny.
Really,
Alrighty.
yeah, really appreciate it. And the best website, is still thekdreport.com, correct?
Correct.
And still catch her every once in a while, CW6 News San Diego. Also, One American News Network. Big thing going on there. Let's get them on every channel, they say. Appreciate each and every visit, Kim.
All right.
Our very next.
Okay, thank you.
All right.